Welcome to Amplify, the podcast for accounting firm growth. I'm your host, Chris Camara. Today, I'm super excited to discuss the digital lead generation process with David Toth, the Chief Growth Officer at Winding River Consulting. David will help us kick off the season, bringing his extensive digital marketing expertise to the show today. David, thank you so much for coming on the show today. But before we jump in, why don't you tell us a little more about yourself?
Awesome, Chris. Well, I'm excited to be here as the inaugural, maybe kickoff program for the series. I think
Yes.
it's a great lineup that you have planned going forward. So I appreciate the opportunity to kind of help tee this off with you guys. I think by way of background, about 18 years ago, while I was in college, I launched my own agency, WorkSmart Integrated Marketing. And it was a digital agency where we focused or integrated in higher education and in the automotive dealership space. And, we launched at that time a series that went nationally called the E-Marketing Technique Series. We were rolling it out for small businesses around the country. And in about 2011, I had the opportunity to exit that firm and decided it was time to move on to something else. For the next 8 to 10 years, I led an experiential marketing agency, which was sold in about 2018, and really gave me a better perspective on face-to-face and digital and how important those two things are when it comes to developing relationships, whether it's B2B or B2C. Shortly thereafter, became a fractional CMO for two really unique professional service firms. One is a CPA firm, one was a law firm. They were both 100% digital. They're both doing more revenue than I see most firms doing today in terms of what they're generating digitally, $4, $5, $8 million a year. And lo and behold, shortly thereafter, Gary and I got together at Winding River, and we have our digital practice. So very passionate about kind of this whole area and connecting digital to strategic growth and practice management. And it's been a great run.
Roll out the red carpet. Celebrate your professionals. Be seen. At Ingenuity Marketing Group, we personalize your approach to attract talent and win business. In our world, accounting professionals are the celebrities. That means branding, PR, and content that ranks you higher. For visibility, faster marketing ROI, and more time in your day, contact our in-house specialists at ingenuitymarketing.com.
Yeah, thanks, David. Sounds like you're enthusiastic, and I look forward to diving in a little bit more. You're actually setting the stage for this whole season today. So give us an overview, first of all. Let's kick it off with the big question that many accountants have. Do firms really get quality leads online? Give us a sense of what size, how many, that kind of thing.
I remember 4 years ago, Gail Crossley and I having this conversation, and where we are today is very different from even 4 years ago. At that point, in the conversation, there was a stigma, and there still is, that the average deal we're capturing through our website is $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. It's not worth our time or investment to make that truly come to fruition. But I will stop you right there. We have clients that can now attribute over $700,000 when it comes to one client that they've captured through their website 3 years ago. Yes, they've grown it. Yes, they've nurtured it, but that an original point of contact was through their website. We have another client in their first year that captured a $500,000 opportunity sight unseen that came through their platform. Now, are those unicorns? Absolutely. But is that enough to raise a flag to say, hey, digital is going to be a core part of where we're getting new opportunities, new logos from going forward? So strategically, we need to think about what data we need to collect, how we're capturing information to say, we want more of this. What are we going to do to get there? Those firms that I talked about where I did some fractional work, they average 75 to 200 leads a week. Think about that. That's 3,000 and 9,000 leads a year. Yes, 50+% of them are garbage or spam. And yes, only 5% of them are truly ready to, make a purchasing decision. So it's really what we do with that data that we're collecting and how we can capture it. But hey, if I could get 3, 4 quality opportunities a month, close one for $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 every 3 months, the ROI becomes very clear. And the whole benefit is the data that we can capture. So yes, websites are generating serious opportunities. We're starting to see a lot more firms realize that through proof in the pudding, and that's just kind of opening Pandora's box.
Wow. Wow. Okay, great. So tell me about the role of the website. I mean, some accounting firm websites aren't all that great. So what can you tell us about that?
I think it's an evolution like anything else. I believe that your website is your virtual front door. When you had a new opportunity, you brought him to your office, you brought him into the experience, you had the white glove expectation or service. And I believe websites should be the same way. I shot a video, me walking in a door. Welcome to our website, our virtual front door, right? Because it's the first impression people are capturing today. If you think about it, anything that you're buying, whether it's a vendor, a service, somebody to come fix your house, a new pair of shoes, this is the first thing you're using, your cell phone, right? You're doing your research online. So that first impression is your LinkedIn profile. It is your website, but it's beyond that. It's more than just your virtual front door to get to know who you are and what you do. It's your differentiator. It's your vehicle to beat the competition, whether that goes for new clients, returning clients, or hiring. Every element of that experience is critical with what you can do on your website. The other side to this is how websites are changing. And part of that is because of how our expectations are changing as consumers in the marketplace digitally. We expect personalization. We expect self-service. We want to navigate as much as we can without having to talk to somebody. We want customization. We want the ability to have dynamic content. Content is becoming uber critical because as we talk about AI and chatbots and other tools, it's only as strong as the content that we have. And so a lot of firms built their strategy around purchasing content, and that really starts becoming a challenge when we think about where we're trying to go and building our website as truly a living and breathing machine that can help us generate leads, help us understand who's visiting our website, and help make sure we're differentiating what we're doing across anybody else in that sector.
Okay, well, that's a pretty strong endorsement for a good website, that's for sure. So tell me about what a firm has to do to be found online. I know it means search engine optimization work, but tell me what's SEO? What does that all mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's, it's a great question because I think SEO is a term that we all talk about or hear about. We don't always know what it actually means. And I think some people think, oh, great, we're going to show up in Google. They're going to come to our website and just fill out a form and all of a sudden we're gravy, right? Well, there's a couple of big things changing when it comes to search engine optimization. And at the base level, SEO or search engine optimization is optimizing our websites and our content strategy to be found in exactly that, search engines. They crawl your website every 30 days. Google has the majority of the market share, so most sites are optimized thinking in that context. And it kind of, looks at three different elements: your on-site performance, your off-site performance, and your technical performance. I am a huge believer in the importance of having a high-performing website from a technical perspective. Load times. Google has something called Core Web Vitals, and they're adding a new Core Web Vital metric that's coming out in March of this year that's going to add another element to this. Google also came out and said that we don't care if your copy is written by AI or a human as long as if it's good quality. And so you're seeing all of these things change so rapidly. Not only what you need to do strategically, but at the same time, how are they being displayed in what we call a SERP page, a search engine results page on Google? You go and type, shoes for men that are age 40, if you will. And the first half of that page is going to be all ads, right? And then you have to kind of scroll down a little bit. So I think part of what's changing is just that overall dynamic, but also bringing to the forefront this conversation around what's important in terms of the content that we're creating to be intentful going forward with SEO. When I talk about SEO, two things come to mind. How did we search 5 years ago? How did we search 3 years ago? How do we search today? Right? Because today we're saying, hey, Siri, help me find a CPA across the US that specializes in heavy highway construction or museums or nonprofits. It's very specific. It's very thorough. It's very detailed or niche oriented. We're not just searching for find me an expert in strategic communications, right? Very broad terms. And so the way that we're starting to write content and be proactive around that, requires, in a lot of cases, a semantics or a cluster-based approach. And this is where I like to really talk about topic cluster strategies. Having a pillar page long form, having 8, 10, 12 blog articles that dive deeper into specific topics within that pillar page, seeing how all of those link together. And a tool like HubSpot, whether you're using their CMS or not, now has some great features to be able to report around that. So I think there's a lot in today's world that's going into SEO, how we're being found, how people are searching. AI chatbots are changing the way we search. If you take that same query, men's sneakers for, an avid, maybe working out once a week person that's 40 years old, and you throw that into a chatbot, right? You're going to get a very different type of result than you are if you're going to Google. Google's going to appear ads. The AI tools are going to say, well, here's 3 shoes that you should consider. Here's why. Here's what they cost. Now go and figure out where the best price is. So I'm actually getting data that helps me understand the difference between an On shoe, a Hoka shoe, and an Adidas shoe, if you will. And so all of these factors are really making SEO not only, an advantageous tactic to use as part of your strategy, but one that's a little bit challenging. And I think firms sometimes, we've been doing this for a year, I'm losing my faith in SEO. Don't, because there's a lot that goes into it, and that you have to pay attention to several moving parts in order to make sure you get from page 5 to page 3 to page 1. Your site's living and breathing, so is your SEO strategy.
Wow, there's a lot involved there. So speaking of technology, let's move to MarTech, as they call it. So the key to driving leads seems to be the right technology, right? So what types of technology are needed?
Yeah, and I think that when we talk about technology, specifically that whole MarTech stack, it all starts with data. Now, a lot of firms are starting to look at data warehouses and data lakes. We don't always necessarily have golden records or a policy or governance in place to manage that data. But simply put, garbage in, garbage out. And so as we're starting to think about our MarTech stack and tech stack in general, what are critical roles that we need to make sure when we make these investments, we're able to maximize the ROI? Do we have a marketing operations person that's overseeing our marketing automation, CRM, time and billing, our golden record data, how all of that's flowing, data enrichment tools, right? Do we have somebody, if CRM is a critical strategy right now, owning the accountability to make sure that data is being accurate, updated, and refreshed? We realized that CRM was brought out 5, 7, 10 years ago. And in most cases, that was a function of IT and not growth or marketing. And now we're seeing a lot more firms embrace CRM, creating policies that create accountability for them to get the commission, the credit, the marketing credit, if you will, if they don't use it or enter it in the right way. And that comes with change management. I believe change agents are CMOs and directors of marketing and the digital drivers, because we have the forefront seat into this technology, sales, marketing, integration, if you will, but you have to be confident with our ability to execute it. So when I think technology today, I think CRM, I think marketing automation, data enrichment. Where are we capturing databases and enriching data from? Are we looking at how all these systems are integrating with each other, from time and billing and practice management into automation, to make sure things are being done appropriately? Some other tools that we're starting to see come to fruition in this space, versus maybe that's been more adopted within B2B in general, is sales enablement, is client experience, right? Because all of this data can impact what we're doing in those roles. But we need to have the right strategy and people that understand how to use this once it's being done. Right now, I see a lot of firms starting to say, we want to integrate all these tools together. Okay, great. Now that you've done that and spent those dollars, what do you do with it? Right? Do you have the right people there to help leverage that investment into technology? And I think you have to look at both sides of the equation going forward. So I'm excited as you guys kind of dive deeper into this topic, because I think it's so top of mind today. I do know that about 45% of firms in the top 100 are using HubSpot, and I know another 5 to 8 looking at it. And I think the big reason why accounting has come to that is because of the exact conversation we're having around resources. We don't have the personnel to be developers customizing robust platforms. We don't have the data managers or analytic managers in place to do this. And HubSpot has done an incredible job at making it a really easy to use platform. But it's also very robust in terms of how you can integrate data in different channels and allow reporting to be very easily extracted.
So in addition to tech, you have to have the content, right? Some sort of message to share. So what's the role of content in lead gen?
So there's a book out there that I found fascinating, written by Marcus Sheridan, They Ask You Answer. And he really dives into content and what is your website supposed to do, and how is content supposed to be created when it comes to really thinking about a funnel, right? Top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of the funnel. A lot of us just focus on this top of funnel content that's very generic and evergreen in nature, but helps us rank for keywords we want, but it isn't necessarily transactional. When you think about SEO, when you think about the types of content you're ranking for, if that's part of the strategy, they break it into 4 categories: commercial, informational, transactional, and something else that I can't remember. And so most firms are writing content that's more informational and not transactional or commercial. And so how do we start understanding what those are? Well, going back to that book, They Ask You Answer, he identified the 5 big questions, the 5 big topics, and they are pricing and cost, problems, versus and comparisons, reviews, and best in class. Now, if you think about it, in a lot of cases, if we're doing tax work, right, what are the 2 questions we get? How much does it cost? How much are you going to save us? Right? And so if you start thinking about it, it doesn't mean we have to go and write a blog article or put up a page that says, here's what it costs to work with us. But hey, here's how we evaluate that relationship so you can better understand what makes us who we are when we say that we're the #1 best in customer or client service, because every CPA firm is, right? Well, let's actually put that to practice. I believe there are a lot of different types of content. One area that we struggle sometimes is this balance between, hey, we're writing this for SEO. We were writing this to rank in Google. Then we have the professionals get involved and they're like, I hate this article. There's no substance to it. We have to rip it all apart and rebuild it with just focusing on quality and technical content. And what you have to do is find that happy medium. Because as soon as you start ripping out all the keywords, the phrases, the interlinking, which sometimes may or may not be the way you think it needs to be written, you start really losing the purpose around, hey, this was meant to rank, or we're using this for assignment selling or sales enablement, right? So when I talked about building traffic to our website in lead gen, we know that more than 50% is unqualified. We know only 5% are really buyers. Let's give them articles they have to read before they take a phone call with us. Let's give them some information that helps them weed themselves out as part of that process, like a top 5 frequently asked questions type of article. So content's incredibly powerful, but it's also not one-dimensional. There's video, there's podcasts, there's white papers, guides, newsletters. All of these things encompass a content strategy and can be leveraged or utilized differently as part of every buyer's or prospective journey through your website, as well as what stage of the funnel they're in, so that we can customize, we can track to see what attribution-wise first, last touch points that are helping convert this. And it also ties back into lead scoring. If I publish a video that talks about, here's what you need to do as a next step if you want to consult with our TAS practice, okay? If you don't watch more than 30 seconds of that video and I can collect that data through a tool like HubSpot, I'm not going to qualify you to have a call, and I'm going to ask you to reschedule it if you've already done that. So you can start leveraging content to help with part of this buying experience or journey. So I think it's a massive undertaking. One thing I like to bring to the forefront when I talk to firms is, yes, professionals need to be involved, but they don't need to be the actual driver of this. What role do we need in our firm to help make sure we're embracing this as this true strategy that's going to drive an ROI? And sometimes we need a content manager, right? Because you're managing your writers, you're managing your outsource team, your professionals. You have to keep things going forward. I wrote an article today on LinkedIn about consistency and cultivating consistency as a digital rainmaker. It's the hardest part of this, right? Even for myself. And so as we think about accountability and what we're using content for, I mean, this session, as you guys are going to have, is probably multiple sessions because it's such a critical part going forward today. And we didn't even talk about AI.
Right. So how about sharing that content? You talked a little bit about that, but it's more simple than sending an email, isn't it? So it must be more complex than that. How are firms sharing that content?
That's a great question. And part of that comes back to the growth culture. I think all your questions are great, so I'll probably keep saying that. But I think a big part of this syndication plan, the sharing plan, the embracing of a content culture requires a digital culture. And I look at digital culture in 5 different kind of pillars. We need to have leadership buy-in. We need to know that our leadership understands there's going to be an opportunity cost out of people's time, day, and budgets to invest into this space. And once we know digital is going to be part of our growth culture going forward, it makes it a little bit easier for professionals and the rest of the team to say, hey, I'm going to spend a little bit more time on LinkedIn versus going to a networking event, right? Now, I believe digital really excels when you have a strong niche or industry vertical or segment that you can prioritize or focus on. A niche can be a geographic region as much as it could be a segment, right? And so if we think about construction, there's a lot of different buckets within construction that you can niche into as well. And so I think when we talk about culture, you need the practice leaders as well, those partners involved in that niche or segment, to be bought into this strategy. And then from there, we need common vocabulary. If I ask you what's a lead, another partner what's a lead, the managing part, I get 5 different answers, and that's not going to be successful when you start generating all of this traffic and effort of how you're syndicating that content. We cannot move forward with digital without advancing confidence. Okay, I believe LinkedIn is a critical part to how we build our digital footprint. Why? Because it's your digital business card. That's where they're going to look you up, right? Whether you know it or not. And so if you're not making sure that you're, understanding the importance of your personal brand and what it needs, how it's represented online, again, that message or content can get lost quickly. When I do these programs for firms, I'm a director at this CPA firm. I'm a partner at that CPA firm. Well, there's hundreds, if not thousands of people with that same title. So let's figure out, how do I really define and differentiate myself that represents the type of content I want to stand behind, whether it's policy, thought leadership, assignment selling, sales enablement, right? I think all of those things kind of come into each other. And then the last piece is, you can't measure new tactics with old metrics. And so I think when it comes to how we're syndicating content, that's a key piece to this, because we might need to see keyword rankings. We might want to see traffic. We might want to see downloads, video views. Somebody was asking me the other day, we've been doing this podcast for 2 years now. We get a couple hundred views here and there, but we really necessarily haven't seen, new business or new logos come from that podcast. I said, that's okay though, right? Because it's helping us create original content that AI can help us accelerate now. And B, maybe you're thinking about that content as a top of funnel strategy and not middle or bottom, right? They got to your website. Now, the next thing we want them to do in my strategy is get them to subscribe to our newsletter. In this case, maybe it's the podcast. Again, it's not converting, but it's getting to know who we are and how we're relating, kind of that relationship or connection. So, I think there's a lot of different ways to execute a content strategy in terms of syndication, but it all comes back to one thing. Who's your audience? What's your ideal client profile? And the better you can dig into that, the better you're going to understand what's the best channels for them to consume it in. Where are they living? Are there communities of great numbers of these people you can entrench yourself into to be able to help, make sure that content investment you're going down has an ROI for the audience you're trying to target. And I think that's a key part to just thinking about that strategy.
Does digital advertising work? Google pay-per-click or Facebook ads, for example?
Well, I plan to tune into this session when you guys host it as a little bit of a deeper dive, because to me, this is a greatly debated topic. I think B2B professional service firms struggle with true PPC. I think it has a place. I saw a firm recently relaunch their brand, change their name, and forgot to go to Google first and type in that brand name to see what pops up when you do that. And all of a sudden I was like, oh crap, somebody, getting fired over this one. But the reality was, the next day there was paid advertisements for that keyword, for that phrase. So they were going to get seen no matter what at that point, right? So they solved the problem that PPC can be a lever towards. We want to make sure that we pop up when this is searched, and we know there's 5 other brands similar to us, so we might have to pay for that. I think PPC, digital media, paid advertising, it has a place in the ecosystem, but if you're truly trying to find organic raw leads from PPC and Google, I struggle with that. I like to use it for retargeting opportunities. Let's say we sponsor an event. We get a database of 1,000 people. How can we take that 1,000 people and hit them up with a LinkedIn branding ad of our firm 2 weeks before, 2 weeks after? Then as we're doing that, sending them emails, social content, right? Kind of along the way. So if you think a little bit of ABM, it has a place there. But if we're really trying to spend $10, $15, $25,000 a month on organic leads, I think your conversion rate and money can be better spent elsewhere. The big platform up for debate is LinkedIn, right? Because we know our professionals are there. It is a higher cost per click. It isn't always the best cost per acquisition, but it does really help us maybe get some visibility into our content or promoting webinars. The difference between a PPC campaign on Google and LinkedIn is with PPC, you're targeting search terms. With LinkedIn, you're targeting people. So if I want to target 400 managing partners or similar profiles in the accounting industry to get to see my ad, yeah, they might skip through it because of A, not being on it enough, or B, just the way they actually use the platform. But it's a very different strategy in terms of how I can impact my budget of being proactive versus reactive and who I'm targeting. So I do see firms testing it. I do think it needs to be part of the overarching strategy, but I don't really see it always as a top of funnel play, because I think for the dollars you need to spend in order to get accurate data and an ROI, you're better off allocating those elsewhere. But I do know that, it's something that a conversation needs to be had around. And I look forward to kind of hearing more about this session when you guys launch it.
Yeah, thanks. We do too. It'll be interesting to hear. So let's talk about pursuing leads. What's important for firms to know that once they get an online lead?
So that's, I think, a part where firms are some struggle and some are starting to get it, right? Because there's 3 parts to having a digital demand strategy. There's driving demand, there's fulfilling demand, there's scaling demand. And at every stage of that, there's data intelligence that we can be using to get smarter. Well, hey, we got 82 leads last quarter. Okay, fantastic. 30 of them are still identified as good, but nobody is following up with them because A, our bellies are full, B, partners are stretched, and C, I heard there's a capacity problem in the profession right now. And so, we have to think about, what do we do once those come in the door? How are we qualifying them? Are they sales ready? Are they still ready to needing to be nurtured going forward? And that's really where I start seeing teams evolve into a growth team. Okay. And yes, sometimes it's marketing, but marketing needs BD support, especially if digital is a strategy that you're trying to deploy, because once they come in there and marketing is able to qualify them based on their ICP, based on the type of company, their revenues, their expenses, some qualifying questions, we still need to get them farther down the funnel to say, hey, they're sales ready. I think we're used to seeing professionals take it from 3 to 10. Right? If it's a 10-step process, marketing 1 to 3, professionals 3 to 10. Now I see firms taking it on growth from 1 to 7 and then bringing that professional in. I heard somebody talk once about, if you look at every industry or business that the technicians are doing the work and doing the selling, it's very few, right? Because that's just the way it works. And today, when technicians are our professionals, their time for billing and doing the work is more critical than ever before. We need to challenge ourselves on this exact topic and conversation, because what ends up happening is we forget about that entire middle of the funnel opportunity. We just focus on, great, somebody filled out a contact form. Let's pursue these because we know that this person is ready to talk. And we're not really focused on, hey, these 3 opportunities are the best fit based on the way they're engaging with us. Let's actually figure out how to pursue them and be forward thinking. And that's where we're starting to see lead scoring really come into play. I talked a little bit earlier on about our websites and self-serve functionality, customization, personalization, dynamic content. Our websites are smart today. If we have the right people behind them, we can do a lot with it. If I know that you've bought this service from us before, and 85% of our clients that have bought this service have also bought this product or service from us, why aren't I serving you up a custom ad every time you're on my website or client portal and our email newsletters? Easy to do, low hanging fruit, right? So I think there's both, two elements to this conversation. The first is understanding what people we need as part of our growth team going forward. What we've needed the last 30 years is not what we need the next 5 years. And then secondly, what's that experience we're providing? This both comes back to this culture shift and having a digital culture as part of our growth culture going forward. It takes time. It's not easy. It's change. We've done things for 130 years, and now we're thinking about how we're going to be doing them differently. And I would imagine a lot of people listening to this are the change agents or can be the change agents in their firm to make this successful.
My brain is full. Thank you so much, David, for all of your expertise. But let me throw it back to you and say, is there anything else you'd like people to know about before we sign off? Perhaps you have an event or a program coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, Chris, this has been fantastic. Like I said, these are just great topics, that every year we should be, discussing and thinking about. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the series. When we talk about digital marketing, 3 years ago, I launched something called the Digital Deep Dive Summit, meant to be a very small group of people that are progressive, that want to be those change agents that are focused on elevating digital to the strategic growth level going forward. Today, that event now is up to 40, 45 people. We keep it small. We want it intimate. We want barriers down when it comes to being, strategic and open in these conversations. We've built some really good peer groups as part of that as well. That summit this year is April 3rd and 4th in Atlanta. It's digitaldeepdive.org. AIM is a sponsor. All AIM members get 15% off when they register. We've got about just over 50% of the signups to date. We have a great agenda and schedule: AI, SEO, change management and growth culture, podcasting. How are we taking what people have done successfully and taking a day and a half to learn versus 3 to 5 to 10 years to do it ourselves? So that's the only real plug that I like to make. And, we're proud to have AIM as a partner and sponsor for that event.
How can our audience get in touch with you or find out more about your work and your work with Winding River?
So 3 ways. First is connect with me on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I believe I'm on my own case study sometimes on LinkedIn. I just really, truly enjoy that platform. Find me, David Toth, on LinkedIn. I recently launched a newsletter called Growth with Toth, talk about consistency. That's actually the article today I posted. Secondly, go to windingriverconsulting.com and subscribe to our newsletter. It's quarterly. We ask you if you're a growth leader or practice a partner or managing partner as part of that. And then thirdly, digitaldeepdive.org. We hope you can join us at the event.
Thank you so much, David. You've given us a wealth of information here. I can't thank you enough. That's it, folks, for another episode of Amplify, the podcast for accounting firm growth. A big thanks for all of you for listening in today. If you like what you heard, we'd love a review on the podcast platform you're listening to us on now. And be sure to listen to the other episodes in the Digital Lead Gen season. You can learn more about Amplify and our past seasons on accountingmarketing.org. Look for the podcast under publications. And if you want to learn more about me, reach out on LinkedIn at Chris Camara. That's Chris with a C, and Camara is Camara. Or you can email me at ccamara@ipainsider.com. Thanks again. And we look forward to having you join us for another episode soon.